Welcome to UnlikelyGamer. Today we'll be assembling Belial from the Deathwing Assault box while I teach you my method for assembling minis for best painting outcomes. As you can see, I like to use a special cutter that is only for sprues. We have separate ones for resin, hard plastic, or metal. I cut fairly conservatively when I'm taking off the sprue. I find it much easier to go in and use the cutter to clean up the edges after. I do this across all of my bits anyway, so it makes it a lot cleaner cut if you actually just press the cutter really close into the piece of plastic like I'm doing here. The type of cutter you get is up to you. You can get one from your local hobby store, Monument Hobbies or Citadel, or you can get one from Micromart, which we tend to do, or you can get one even from your local hardware shop. I do like to cut everything off the sprue and put them in chronological order based on what the instructions tell me to do. Once I've done this, then I go through with the hobby cutting tool or an X-Acto knife or razor blade to finish off the edges, get rid of any extra sprue bits. Then you'll see I go through my process to remove mold lines quite separately. Here you want to be as delicate as possible. It tends to work best if you are pushing away from you versus pulling, though as you can see here I will use a X-Acto knife to remove any far bits by pulling towards me. Sometimes I'll even put a glove or a plaster on my fingers so that I don't cut myself. The main piece of advice I can give when putting together a model is 100% the amount of time you put into it is what you're going to get out of it in the painting process. The smoother the lines, the less mold bits that you've got, the cleaner it's going to actually fit together, so you'll have less gaps to fill in the end, and your paint is going to go on so much smoother, especially if you're painting a broader area like a pauldron or a cape. Because I like to do a assembly line process, I then go through and adjust for mold lines. So the first thing is getting all of the sprue bits off, taking care of any extra plastic or large divots or edges that you need to take care of. This I use an X-Acto knife to go through and get rid of all of the areas where the mold is seen on the plastic after it's come out of the processing plant. The final step before picking up a bottle of glue is to use a fine coarse file to get rid of any extra edges or make sure that everything is properly smooth before moving on to the next step, which in this case is cleaning up the mess I've made. So when you're going to go start your gluing, you want to make sure that you're working on a clean-ish surface so that you don't have tiny little sprue bits and particles that get stuck in the glue and cause issues for you when you paint. If there are any large bits, you can also use a bottle of air to get rid of those on the surface. Alright, we are finally ready to pick up a bottle of glue. I personally like using the Revel Contact Professional. It's my favorite. I do like that it also has a steel tip that makes it really easy. So the first thing you want to make sure that you're doing, again, beyond following the directions, is also pre-fitting, making sure that what you've got fits in the right spot. You know the angles and how it works. That's also going to give you a good idea of where the edges are going to touch, because it's not always easy to see in the instructions on where you actually need to put it. I cannot seem to tell the difference. So go ahead and put a very small stream of glue. Less is more when it comes to this. You don't want it to be fitted out too much, though I do wear a glove just in case I need to rub some off very quickly. This is your basic plastic model, so you do want to use plastic glue versus cyanoacrylate or super glue. This is going to allow the model to actually slightly adhere together through the glue melting the plastic, which gives you a really good bond, really good seal, and doesn't leave any edging around it. And of course, make sure that you press and hold and allow the model to rest if needed. This model has a cape that connects at the shoulders, which oftentimes can result in a gap that I need to fill with putty, but I haven't had to do that since I started using Monument Hobbies gap filler glue. The stuff inside the bottle is amazing. The bottle itself could use a better tip, so unfortunately I'm having to use this nearly empty bottle of Revel and that tip to apply the glue because I couldn't get the cap off and I had to screw the whole thing open. Monument Hobbies, if you're listening, please fix. So I'm basically just using the same process. It's a little bit of a thicker glue as well, so it does a good job of filling the gap. This model also has a double barrel gun, so I am going to drill my barrels. I'm a big believer. I think it adds just that little extra touch to your barrels if they aren't already drilled. So picking the right size is very important because you want to make sure that it matches what the size of your bolter gun would have shooting through it, but you also want to make sure that it's not too big that you damage the barrel itself. So very gingerly, do it as carefully and as slowly as you can. I like to drill a very small hole first and then check my placement on both sides, especially with a double barrel like this, and then go ahead and drill a little bit deeper. I'll also use the drill to widen. So because I have done a bit of work, I am going to make sure that I spray everything off with my can of air before putting on the final bits, which is the arms, weapons, some of the decorative bits, and of course his head and pauldron. At this point, you do want to make sure that you're being very judicious with the amount of glue you use, especially for some of these smaller pieces, the head, the pauldron. You don't want glue to fall off into the wrong areas. Alright, so at this point we are done. We have our full model. I'm not going to glue him to the base because I still need to figure out what I'm going to do with the full base, but there you have it, a full Belial model. I hope these tips help you out with your next model. Like and subscribe for more videos, and may your dice always roll crits.